Hey guys, what's going on? Dr. Dylan Cahill here. I want to try something a little bit different. One of the videos Dr. Naveed Ghaffari and I put out recently was related to our tips on the med school application process, and that got some attention. I think some people found it valuable, and there's a lot more content in this area we can put out, so I wanted to just start that with this little recording here. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Dylan Cahill, graduate of Harvard Medical School, and I've spent a lot of time over the last few years advising students on all parts of the med school application process, from their primaries, secondaries, interview prep, and I wanted to take a moment to address one particular question that I get asked from time to time, including this past week, which is how should I share on my application some deficiency? Maybe my grades dropped, and maybe I don't have as much research experience as would be expected from someone from my school. Maybe I don't have enough leadership or volunteering. Tip number one on this, your application should mostly highlight your strengths. You really only want to call attention to deficiencies when they are legitimate deficiencies. For example, if you had C's and D's when you're mostly an A student. And secondly, there has to be a good reason to back it up. So, for example, if you had any legitimate hardships, that makes sense to include. If legitimate hardships would be things like you experienced a death in the family, someone close to you, maybe you had a sibling who was actively suicidal during one of your terms, maybe something catastrophic happened like your main housing burnt down while you were a student. I've literally had clients who have had these various things that have happened to them, and for those reasons, their grades took a dip for that semester. I think your application is missing that context if you choose not to include it. On the flip side, there's a lot of people who say, adjusting to college was hard for me, or during the pandemic, transitioning to virtual classes was hard for me. Really, those things aren't super unique. I don't think it's too compelling for most admissions committees, unless there was something, again, a little bit more unique about your situation that you feel like is worth conveying. Another question related to this whole topic of addressing deficiencies is, where do I even include that on my application? The personal statement might be too risky unless somehow this experience, this hardship was central to you, your identity, your reason to becoming a physician. If it's more this one-off kind of thing, then on AMCAS, you can write kind of something about special circumstances. This used to be called the disadvantage statement essay, which is about the length of a paragraph. Another thing to keep in mind is a lot of secondaries. So after you submit your primary application, school-specific secondaries will come back to ask a question like, is there anything special that you want to share that you haven't already had the chance to elsewhere in your application? That could be somewhere to do it. Or if you actually want to create a full story around it, maybe a 500-word essay when allowed about overcoming adversity or some sort of challenge. To summarize, bottom line, if you're going to put a deficiency in your application, make sure it's legitimate and something unique to you that a reasonable person would say, oh yeah, like that was some unfair disadvantage that you had that someone evaluating your application should probably know about. Another thing is, but keep in mind that for the most part, your application should highlight your strengths as an applicant. Remember that admissions committees are largely looking at your application through the lens of, is this a reason that I should accept someone, or is this a reason I should reject someone? And if it doesn't really fit into either of those categories, somehow helping make the case for you, it might actually be worth just leaving it out. Also, second thing on the recap is nowhere to put it. So maybe in somewhere where you're asked to write about special circumstances, maybe save it for secondaries, knowing that most, but definitely not all schools will give you the opportunity to. And bottom line is, if you're still wondering whether to include it, I think it just helps to write down your thoughts and then share that with a few people, trusted advisors, friends, mentors, and see if you can get their opinion on whether they think it would be a value add to have in your application somewhere. So hope this helps. Happy to create more content on things like the med school personal statement, which I know a lot of people are writing right now. And I'll have some more content hopefully with Dr. Naveed Ghaffari in the near future. All right, so to any med school applicants out there putting together your application, good luck. Feel free to drop a comment and catch up soon.